The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening. We're here at Woke, Wealth of Knowledge and Experience, and you're tuned into a show that's going to enlighten us about the real history of Black people in really not just America, but in the world. But we're going to focus on a theme that's kind of a little bit gruesome and grisly, but we can't. I think what happens a lot of times, we want to shy away from those things. Mm-hmm. And like I always say, certain other people always bring up their history, and they end up getting a lot of benefits by kind of, manipulating people through their story. Yeah, and I mean, it's a sad story, but it only takes up a smaller part of history. It's not the history that we've had for over 400 years and even back farther than that. So my name is Ronda Dixon. I'm an attorney, and I'm the host of Woke, Wealth of Knowledge and Experience. And today I have my co-host is
Thank
Jaclyn.
You. Hi.
She's going to tell you more about herself. She has a degree in African American Studies.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jaclyn Green. I studied at Cal State Northridge, and I studied African American history with a focus in social science. But pretty much it was structured like a lot of good reputable educational systems, just from an African perspective. So I really enjoyed that aspect. So I learned a lot of different genres of education. So I'm happy to be here and find out some more stuff.
Well, my take on that is that all history is African history because we started in Africa, and they've just been giving us a lot of propaganda.
Exactly. But that's what really opened my mind up to that broader history that you don't find in school or, just traditional textbooks,
I like your nails.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
They're new.
I'm going to have to get me some ghetto nails, too.
Shout out
time,
to Jerica.
Okay?
Thank you.
I'm going to have to bling bling. So we're going to talk about something. I first saw this recently. I never really noticed it. Was that on the back of a $20 bill, it looks like there's a lynching going on. And there's actually, where it's the hedge, looks like people. When you zero in, I took my own $20 bill. I took the more newer one that has the different colors in it. And it's embossed.
God, I have one here in my pocket. But I don't think, this isn't the new, this is but this is still kind of old, though.
But they all show it, and we're going to put it up on the screen. But I challenge people to take their own $20 bill. Don't trust me, because that's what I don't trust people. So I wanted to see it with my own. I thought, well, maybe they manipulated it somehow. And what was scary was when I took a picture with my phone as close as I could, and then I took that picture and zeroed in. And I was watching this with another person. I was like, wow, not only do I see this guy with his, he's being hung, and you can see the noose around his neck is hanging to the side, and he's like, his arms, he's got like suspenders on, and he's inside of, it's kind of camouflaged inside of a lantern. But when you look that closely...
This one here? The one in the middle, right?
Yes, you'll see it, and you can see it with the naked eye, but you really can't see it until you zoom in.
That zoom in on there.
And you see all the pixels, but then you see other faces. I see an older Black woman in there.
Yeah, this is when I'm like, I need my glasses.
No, I don't think your glasses will work. I think you really have to magnify it. You really have to magnify it. And can we show some of the pictures? You didn't send them? Okay, sorry. We're trying to show the pictures, but look at your own $20 bill, and you'll be able to...
I'm like, let me see if I can find one here.
You'll be able to see the picture. I'm going to be doing my technology as we go.
Right. Well, I'm sure they could pull out their
Yeah, but I wanted to show it. But this is my $20 bill that I use. So.
Oh, you have the image there, huh?
Yes.
And that's what I should have done too. I got this new phone with a nice new camera.
Okay. And so I was trying to. This is just one of the images. Let me see if I can attach the other two. Shoot. Hate to be doing this on the. So anyway, we're trying to show you the pictures. Well, I'm just going to be able to show one because I can't really get them all at the same time. I was trying to share them. Okay, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to send them to you, and we'll talk about something else until we get those up. But I really wanted to show...
This is like an illustration of it, but this one you can't really...
No, you have to see the actual bill. You know, you have to see the actual bill. So when you look at the bill, you can see, and just do it yourself, because when you do it yourself, you can also have an opportunity to zoom in, because it's really funny. It's like a Rorschach or something. Maybe it's just me, but I showed it to other people, and then I'm looking at the hedge, and it goes, and so then it's, what if that's other people? What if that's people down there that are looking up at him? And it really looks like that. So it's interesting because I Googled lynching on the $20 bill. And of course, some white person said, oh, no, that's a lantern. Well, that's the whole point. They camouflaged it by putting him inside of a lantern. And from far away, it looks like a lantern. But to be honest with you, if as a black person, I think it looks like a lynching. Yeah. Shouldn't it be changed?
If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm finding it offensive. I'm getting upset.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of offensive imagery that people have found over history that, you know, they've taken out of certain things, whether it's advertisements or things like the new, like, have you heard about their removing Aunt Jemima?
Oh, yeah. Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. Yeah.
They're removing all that. I was like, wow, that's a monumental thing, because that's been around for so long. And now they finally, they finally are like, okay, we'll change the imagery on that. So I think it is interesting that even on the money, like, people use it every day and don't really, you know, look at it or even know what it represents. Because you see, like, what is all this? You know, it's put there for a reason, but what does it represent? You know?
Well, I think they're powerful. Like, they say that there's a book, Messages in Water, and it was a study that was done by a Japanese scientist where he put words on water and then took a microscope, really took a microscope and magnified it and looked at the crystals in the water. And if you put certain words, like you put love, the crystals would be beautiful and just radiant.
Really?
But if you put hate, or you put a bad word or something with bad intention, then they would be cracked and disjointed, and they would look ugly, and they would just not be cohesive. So there's power in words, you know, and there's power in symbols. And so we have it up right now. Thank you very much. And this is my $20 bill, okay? Now, as you're looking, it looks like there's a crowd of people down there. And there is a lamp. But at the top of that lamp, there's a man with a noose hanging his neck. And if you really look close, you can even see his face and see his hairs, kind of like he's got a natural. You see all of that. And then what's interesting on that one, I don't have the window, but a little bit farther up, when you really look at it, in the window, there's like a picture of a woman. It's in the upper left-hand quadrant. And then as you look on the side, it's weird, but it's sort of like a Rorschach painting. As you look on the side, I started to see a guy kind of hanging on the side too, that like a ghost, sort of into
like
that,
kind of embedded into the
yes,
photo.
Like a bas relief. And it's just interesting because the more you zoom in and look at it, you start to see other faces and stuff. And I just think it's the misery that Black people have gone through in this country. That and it says at the bottom, White House. It's the White House. So this country, like I said in my last show, one of the things I wanted to elucidate is that this country was really based on slavery. It really was. It was set up for slavery. It was a penal colony. So when they did when they drafted the 13th Amendment and said that they abolished slavery except for penal servitude. They actually never abolished slavery because technically we were prisoners of war. So therefore, we were prisoners when we were slaves because they were having a fight with the Songhai Republic. The Europeans had been going down to Africa and raiding and fighting with them over the gold and the minerals,
the
resources for
which
centuries.
Which they're still doing.
Right, they are. We're getting into that too.
Even right now in the pandemic.
That's correct. Right, this is the best time for them to do it. I feel like this is a plandemic, and I feel like a lot of trickeration is going on.
The most important people are monopolizing on all of it.
Exactly. They're out here with no face mask on because they know it's a pandemic.
Right.
So they want us to be inside.
Everybody else has to wear a mask.
Where they know where we are while they're doing whatever nefarious things they're doing. I'm sorry, but I just think they're doing some nefarious things, and I can see.
I believe it.
I can see it, you know. It's just a major theft. But it's interesting because when you look at history, that's why I like to look at history. They said history repeats itself unless we listen. And so I've often been wondering, why do we need one person to have so much power? Why is it we have a monarchy, even a pharaoh? Why do we have to have one person have everything and everyone else be choked off with nothing?
Right now, it's like they say the 99ers, the 99%, and now it's the 1%. I feel like it's going down to even less than that.
It is.
The 1%. It's the 99.5%.
There's a percentage of the 1%.
Yeah, the 99.5% have-nots and the 0.05 haves,
Well, what's interesting is, when you're playing Monopoly, there was a really good clip of a woman. I wanted to put that up, too, if I could, another one of my shows. She's talking about, she gets upset and impassioned, but she's saying, maybe some people have seen it. Imagine you playing a Monopoly game for 400 years and you don't have any money.
Right, you finally ran out.
You don't have any pieces. You can just only watch the other people play the game. And then finally, when you get a chance to play the game, every time you buy Park Place or the boardwalk, they take it and smash it down, burn it down, take all your money out the bank.
When they pass it up and come back around the next time.
And so every single time, so for 50 more years, somebody's always taking all of your stuff away from you every single time. And then they tell you to catch up. You can't catch up.
You can build a house, but you can only get wood planks, but you can't have tools. But, you got one thing, but not the other.
We built that because we actually, they forgot we built the White House. We built everything.
Right.
We were the Masons. The original Masons that the Freemasonry is started from were black people. And so I found out when I went touring Europe that a lot of those castles in Europe were actually created by black people.
Really?
Yes, that's why they had the stonemasons and things like that. Because when I went to Morocco, I was shocked when I saw the Moroccan castles. I said, "Wait a minute, that's the exact same architecture as the castles in Europe." So, who was there first and who? Right? They took all of that. So my uncle once said something that was really profound. He said, white people have stolen so much they've forgotten what they stole.
Of course.
They don't
even know what that means anymore.
They misappropriated and they argue about, it's mine, Which reminds me of the statement that Nick Cannon made. And then they turned it around and said it was hateful.
Anti-Semitic.
And he was being anti-Semitic when he actually was telling the truth.
Yeah, he expressed his opinions, and I don't even think it was from a vicious standpoint or a malicious standpoint in any sense. So I think it's unfortunate that he had to be looked down upon like that and be shunned in such a way just for sharing his opinions, especially on his own platform. So it wasn't even something affiliated with that. But I understand, when you're in entertainment and you're out in the world, all that's affected. But I think people need to hear that history and they need that knowledge and, that reference. And especially from someone that is so important that touches so many people. A lot of people get that information.
Well, they're just trying to control the narrative. That's all they've ever done is try to control the narrative.
Which is why you don't hear anything about that in general.
Like, for instance, some people get mad at me. I'm a Buddhist. I'm not a Christian, so I can look at this with the lens. When I was young, I would question everything about the Bible. It just didn't make sense to me. And I was told one thing, and then I read it, and it says something totally different. There's certain things that people believe that it says, that the book says, the Bible, that it doesn't say anywhere in that book. I have read it cover to cover looking for it. I read it twice. I wanted to see where it said about the snake and the serpent and Satan. It didn't say that. There's a few other things in there that are popular beliefs that the book doesn't mention. Not at all. And then when I questioned people about it, they were like, oh, well, you're a doubting Thomas or you don't know. And then I'm like, well, no, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know. You don't have to make anything up, you know?
Yeah.
But there's some reason why is because the translation has been mistranslated. Because it's been translated with the intention of changing things. Because actually, there was a guy, NFAC, no fucking around crew or whatever, remember him? Jam Master Jay. He was saying they stole our religion, and they did. Christianity is a black religion. You know, everybody, and when you go to Europe and you see the photos, you'll see that they have depictions of Mary, Joseph, all of them as being Moors, which is another word for black.
And even when they describe it in the Bible, they describe them as, you know, thick-haired. And where does that come from? You know, of course, now in today's society, they associate that with only one thing. But for the Bible now, it's been misappropriated.
Again, right.
Into
just
another
like they
light.
tried to get... they try to bully Nick Cannon into seeing it their way or saying it their way, and that's just really not what it... You know, if we can't get it right, then we'll
it
never
was just
get
unfortunate
it right,
because
you know?
I had heard about it and then actually watched the footage for myself, and I thought it was way more malicious the way
they treated
it had
him.
Blown up. Yeah.
Yes.
And then when I saw it, I was like, this is what all the hype is about? Like, that's so unfortunate.
I thought he had called somebody a derogatory term or something.
Like someone maybe called in, you know, or some kind of like interaction like that. But
that's our history too, so you can't tell us what not to do with our own history.
They're like, well, that's our history. And
if you look at the dictionary definition...
You can't tell me that's not our history.
If you look at the definition in the dictionary, it says Semitic peoples. It mentions black people, and it mentions Hebrews at some point. But remember, Jewish people, they don't want to be Hebrew. That's why I asked them one time. I said, "How is it that you guys have been changed to a name that, you know, there's only 24 letters in the Jewish alphabet, and 2 of the letters that are taken out, one of which is a J." So obviously, that couldn't have been your mother tongue. That could not have been a name that was an original name.
Right.
For your group
just
of people.
Logically speaking.
Because the actual letter doesn't even exist
in the language.
In the language. Why would you allow yourself to be named something that did not exist in your original language?
But that's
and
it's
that actually,
histories.
You know what? They're going to get mad at me, but it's a pejorative term.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's a pejorative term.
Really?
It comes from jewelry.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. See,
so actually, they were making fun of them, and then they allowed that to be adopted to be their name.
I'm like, kind of.
And then sometimes when I talk to them, they'll say, "Oh no, it's from the house of Judah," but that's not it. There were 12 tribes of Israel. They don't even say that they. I mean, a lot of them don't. They all say that they came from Judah, and they don't say that. And it's not spelled Jue. It's spelled Jew.
Yeah, and I thought even though it's not even spelled the same way, so why would it be even abbreviation or anything close to that? It's something completely separate. So,
I wanted you to see my earrings are the
really
Eye of Ra.
Those are nice.
Yeah, the Eye of Ra. And so that's woke. That's part of woke, you know, the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, third
and
eye.
It's funny how there's so much of that symbology on the money in the, you know, the U.S. money has a lot of Egyptian symbology, but here they have this very offensive picture. And yes, there may be a lantern there. But there is a person inside of that lantern, and that person is being hung. And that might be a hedge there. But if you look at it a certain way, it looks like there's a whole bunch of people looking up. When you did have it
zoomed in, it did look like, those are a bunch of small
heads of people.
Top of someone's head.
Yes. And so if Nick Cannon can be bullied out of his show and everything just because he mentions that Semitic people and that, you know, certain people are trying to emulate other Semitic people, then if we feel offended by something that looks like a lynching, I think it should be changed. And I think Harriet Tubman should be on that bill immediately.
Yeah, and then if we are both Semitic
yesterday,
people, why are we not both on the same side, you know? As opposed to, you know, it being a united fight, it's like, no, keep us out of it. You can't say that and, don't include that. That's anti-Semitic of you,
This enmity has happened for some time, and that's part of the reason. I mean, there's a rift.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It's the same rift like when Abraham has Isaac and Aaron. He has two different children, and one he treats well, the other he throws out and says that becomes the Arabic people later on.
Right.
But there's also the issue of, okay, if you came out of Egypt and your leader was a guy named Moses, which, by the way, is an Egyptian name.
Right.
Then,
when I
you
learned
probably
that
look
too,
like
I
the
was
people.
like, that's so funny.
Yeah. You more than likely look like the people that were, in Egypt. And as a matter of fact, everyone that left probably did too. And probably didn't start to look lighter until they started to mix with other people in the Middle Eastern region closer to the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah. Right, which ties right back in.
Yeah. So, but we're going to go into the history of lynching, because here it shows us that the White House, which is, and I really think they should change the color too. I'm finding that offensive as well.
Of the building itself, huh?
I just don't like it being called the White House anymore.
Right.
I liked it when the rapper said, "I'm gonna paint the White House black."
Exactly.
Ain't no
That's
future
what
in your front.
They should have did that for if
that was MC Greed. Yeah.
They want to stand for everything.
Yeah. You know what I thought? Obama should have did this at least one time. You know how you take those lights, because it's white, you can change the color.
Ooh,
you can change the color by using lights.
Put some of that cellophane paper, put black on there.
If I was the president of the United States, it would be on and popping, okay?
And then when I leave,
wait a minute, I would have had a wrapped, helicopter land on the front lawn. I would have had a big picnic for everybody with watermelon.
Right.
Fried chicken, barbecue.
Right. All the soda, everything you can have.
Strawberry soda, watermelon soda.
Right.
Red soda.
Right. And I bet you they'd come too still.
Oh, my God. I'd have a big old party. And I would put a black light on the White House.
Right. I mean, if I could, I'd paint it black.
That's right.
Why not? Just if I could.
Yeah. Because, it is the house that black people built.
And I wonder if there's any, like litigation, or if anyone has ever even petitioned to potentially change the color. Just
probably
in history,
not. Probably not. And of course, knowing the person that's in office right now, he'd have a fit. So, one of the things I challenge you all to do is to get a $20 bill, one that's nice and crisp and new. Get the newer, even the newest version has this, and we should all be petitioning to put that Harriet Tubman immediately, because this bill is the most highly circulated bill. When you go to the ATM, you're going to pull out 20s. It's just only recently did they start
giving you
allowing different denominations, but not only is it just a matter of pride, but it's a matter of correction to a lot of the nasty things they've done. And, we're going to show another picture of the history of lynching, and there is a Life magazine photo. Did you send it to her?
Yeah.
The Life magazine photo that shows is actually a picture of a postcard. This was a popular thing for white people to do. And you see them smiling while these poor unfortunate souls behind them have been lynched, tarred, feathered, cut off pieces of their body.
Yeah, and you can see
beat them
men
and torture
and
them.
And,
And if you look very closely, they're smiling. And these are common. These postcards, souvenirs of lynchings, were very common. As a matter of fact, that's where the word picnic comes from. Literally, they would, hey, let's go find a nigga and pick a neck, basically. Let's pick a neck. And they'd bring their food and sit out, and it was like a big entertainment.
A celebration.
It was like going to the drive-in.
Sunday fun day.
Yeah,
right.
Sunday fun day.
Right, bring your kids out. Bring grandma, bring grandpa, bring everybody. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. It's just, I was surprised, you hear about it, but people don't see those photos when there's so many people. This was a group thing.
Huge.
It was a regular status quo at that time that people think now is so far gone and forgotten, yet these are someone's great grandparents.
Well, that really isn't that long ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
At most, someone's
it's
great
not that long
grandparents,
ago.
maybe even grandparents.
Yeah.
So, you know, where are those people at now? Where are they today? I just was so, you know, that it is a culture. It's a part of American culture
Yes,
that
it
is
is.
really not addressed or spoken to as often as it should be. And it just bothered me because they say, you know, it's like a certain group of people, or they look like this or whatever, but those are regular people. They were probably neighbors from just all around, and you know, the local doctors, nurses, and who's who.
The sad thing about it is usually it was someone that was well-to-do. You know, a lot of times it was they wanted to call them an uppity nigger because they could probably speak better than them. They were educated. They probably had a nicer house or car. Literally, when they did the Rosewood Massacre, maybe we could put that picture up if you can find it, the Rosewood Massacre. Literally, for years afterwards, they literally came in and firebombed black people's homes, burnt the whole city out. And they said that for years afterwards, they black women would be walking down the street and see a white woman with their furs on, with their jewelry on, wearing their clothes, and they would snatch it off of them.
Yeah, I mean, I would too.
But they had no shame. They took all their things, and it was just envy. It was supposedly started because somebody whistled at or assaulted a white woman, and then they did all this stuff. You know, they made they lynched them. They actually got airplanes that they used for crop
they
festers,
bombed and they destroyed the community pretty much.
They air bombed them, basically created their own bombs and just destroyed the community and killed hundreds of people,
like they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma too.
And it was all because of jealousy. That's all it was. And it's interesting because they never gave us the reparations, and so people did what they could.
I don't care. I'll take it.
Right. Well, there was many times in history where white people were just given land, just given territory. And
to start opportunity, to start fresh. And
even up into the modern times, that's why they took down Woodrow Wilson off of Harvard University. They took him down because he actually was a racist. When he did the New Deal, he actually put in policies that these could not go to black people.
I learned that also. And I was like, why don't people know that?
And the redlining, that was started by the government, not by the banks. The banks were directed not to give
certain areas specifically district areas.
Right, they were given the red line from the government and told not to give home loans and not to give people.
And then people think it's just kind of like, oh, your local, you know, bank or local mortgage company, whoever discriminating against you. But like you say, it came down from the government to these institutions that this is what you should be implementing and how you should be doing business. And they had to follow suit, and they did. And
so
now,
the government is enforcing, and that's why this is a continuous trespass. The government is enforcing those things, even in sort of underhanded ways, like mass incarceration, like
you know, voting too. They still disenfranchise people with that, and especially now too. I've heard things about, you know, they're using the pandemic to
the
pandemic to I tried to say that so then I don't say it somewhere else, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, that's not it. Okay. But that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
They're using the pandemic to take people's voting rights.
Yeah, they're eliminating polling places.
Yes, they did that in Kentucky
because of the pandemic,
where McConnell is. They cut down from 2,700 polling places to 300, and in the black community, where the bulk,
most of them were,
where most of the black people that live in the state of Kentucky, the bulk of them, they put one polling place for 612,000 people.
Wow, and probably has like 3 workers in there.
On top of that. So they had mail-in voting, but then they said, at the last minute, said, you know what, we made a mistake on the mail-in ballots, so those have to be thrown out. So everybody that voted early, they had to throw theirs out, so that now with only 300 voting machines, now everyone has to line up on the day of. And remember that Republicans won a major victory in Wisconsin when the Supreme Court of Wisconsin said, you know what? The governor had said they were going to extend the count and extend the time because people were trying to vote in person and they had to social distance and all that stuff. And they said no.
They were trying to limit that. Yeah. Okay. I did hear about that. I was like, did I hear about that? But they weren't. They were trying to limit that time that they had. And see,
no, they did. The governor was trying to say more. Then they made a law trying to say no. And the Supreme Court of that state said, they upheld that they could shorten the time and not consider the fact that there's a pandemic.
Right.
Because, look at it. The reason I say it's a pandemic, it really helps him, this thing, stay in the White House, because A, he can invoke martial law. B, he can invoke FEMA. C, he can say COVID-19, you have to social distance, so you have to wait in line. Right now, restaurants and everything, anyone that is open and has to be outdoors, and
outdoors,
you have to wait
still distance
for 2 hours maybe to get into a restaurant, and that's to sit outside. So think about the fact that all these people are trying to vote, and if we can't vote by mail, this is
elderly
really sinister.
People, sick people, people with kids. What are they supposed to do? Leave their family at home, and then bring everybody, and everyone's gonna just be out there. That's like the worst for them to say. Socially distance and then limit polling places, but then want people to go out and represent for their communities and their states and all that, and don't give them the opportunity.
They don't want people to represent for their states,
but
and all that.
They
that's the
say
point.
That should be the point,
I follow politics a lot, and what I've looked at is that usually the Republicans are usually only 15% of the population. So when they win, it's through different types of manipulations that they're really good at. Manipulating the courts, by stacking the courts every time they come in.
Right.
Gerrymandering, fixing the districts so that they have more people in that district. Disinformation. They literally have robocallers calling you and telling you, hey, stay home today. You don't need to, they target people and tell them that they don't need to vote or just tell them something crazy.
Right.
They did that before the Facebook, and now they do
it. Literally calling your house phone.
Yes. And so Facebook
the phone book.
allows them to do it now through different target ads by looking at your profile, looking at your information.
They know where and how to target you.
Right. Exactly. And they start looking at people because they want you to click on. I've noticed lately I've been getting a lot of Trump things in my in my feed, like either in my email or and they're just trying to target me, see if I click on it. If I say I like it, then I'm gonna get a million of those things.
It's a bait click, as they call it.
Yes, that's what it is. But I'm like,
not falling for it. Right. Next thing you know, everything on your phone will be campaign.
A friend of mine recently showed me something, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I can't let you send this to anybody else. It's like, it's pathetic." So it said it was from some Reverend Gator, and I'm just going to call him out because he's batshit crazy. This man is. So he says that the Black Lives Matter people are witches, and then he has a picture of a white woman in some kind of weird pose, and they're not even white. So he has them up there in the background. He's a black reverend. It's really scary. So he's saying that they're demons and they're witches. And she was telling me that. And so then she said, I got to show you this, And so when she shows it to me, he starts talking. I'm like, oh, my God, he's crazy. He's not even making any sense. He said he's a hit man for the Black Lives Matter. He's a black man. He said he's a hit man, and he's going to kill them, and they're demons and they're witches. And I'm like, oh, my God, where have I heard that from? That was way back in the Dark Ages when they had the, the Spanish Inquisition and stuff like that, which, by the way, was an ethnic cleansing of black people.
Oh, yeah. Right. Again. All of them all go back to, it all goes back to the same topic, ironically enough.
So it's funny how we get all these things, all roads lead to Rome, as they say. But when you go back, they lead back to Africa, and they lead back to the Moors. They
always do.
When you go back far enough in history, all of them have that opening. That's where they started, So we were talking about lynching, and it's something that happens all the way up until the one that we saw recently, where everybody knows about Emmett Till. which was really sad. I mean, this poor little boy, I just can't imagine, being the mother of a black son. I can't imagine how his mother felt when she saw him, and she decided to make the decision to have an open casket so that people could see what they did to her son.
Yeah.
And it just makes me tear up just thinking about it. If I was
saw
her,
the image. I didn't want to share it here because I was like, that's too graphic. But
yeah, it's too graphic. But they beat him on
unrecognizably.
You couldn't recognize him. His eye was shut. Why would you beat a little boy like that? He was 14 years old. And I'm pretty sure he didn't whistle at that woman.
Right.
He knows better than that. So it was just really sad. And she had finally admitted that she lied after all these years. But just no remorse.
It's come out that, that after all this time, she finally admitted to lying. And they didn't even persecute her in any way, did they?
No, but they're making it a crime for people to make false police reports.
And I think that's awesome because it's too prevalent for there not to be some sort of protection or something for that. But I'm really surprised because that's a big step towards a good, at least some kind of foundation of something, so that those people that are in that space have that protection.
It happens more often than you know, because I'm a criminal lawyer too, and I see people do that all the time. And they're able to do it because if they can convince, if it's the usual suspect, they convince them to do that. Yeah. So, and a lot of people know that, so they do that to people. So anyway, that's Emmett Till. There's a museum of lynching, and my mom actually visited the museum. And what they do is they have these plaques that are hanging. And I think we have a picture of it, right? And each person's name is inscribed, and there's so many of them, and it's sort of a graphic example. But when you go to this museum, it's in Alabama, right? Is it Montgomery, I think?
I believe it was, yes.
Montgomery, Alabama. There's a museum, and I think it's by the Equal Justice Initiative or somebody like that put it together. But it's a museum of lynching, and it's really sad. You can see all these people and their stories about how they got lynched. I recently read a story about a guy who was appointed in the 1880s to be a postmaster. And he was doing really well. Him and his family were doing really well. It was a federal job. And then they appointed him to move him to a white neighborhood to be the postmaster general for that neighborhood. They kept on persecuting that guy and persecuting the guy. They came to his house one day. And they took him and killed him. 1880s.
Okay, 1880s.
They took him away and killed him.
I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. In 1880s too, yet again, not that long ago.
Right. They burned the house down, killed him just because he did nothing wrong. He just had a job as the postmaster general, and they didn't feel he should have that job.
Right. He wasn't fit.
Right. It wasn't that he wasn't fit. He was black. And, this is the underpinning of systemic racism and discrimination is that not only did they not want black people, they had wanted us here to use our labor for free. Once we were freed, they didn't want to pay for our labor, so they set up the penal system so that they could keep slavery going. And then on top of that,
and everything.
Yeah, but trumped up charges.
Labor.
I mean, literally, you could go to jail for
stole pizza.
You could be up after dark. You could be out after
like
dark
curfew.
If you didn't have a job. Because
like the Jim Crow laws when they started
the black codes and Jim Crow laws. But one of them was if you didn't have a job, you couldn't be loitering. So if you didn't have a job, well, the whole point is...
what are you doing out here?
No, the point of that was you should be a slave if you don't have a job. Nobody's going to pay you, so they want you to be a slave. So they'll bring you back into slavery. They get you
on the other side of the labor board, the labor workforce, and then they're like, okay.
And so they took a lot of people in like that for doing absolutely nothing. And taking them in. And so they there's always been a competition to keep white males on top, basically. And one of them is that discrimination stops them from having to compete for jobs. With black males.
At all.
And anybody, And in this particular case, because the federal government had given this guy this job, they just finally came in and brutally murdered him. And I think they also killed his little girl. Because they burnt the house down and... they both
probably everybody in it.
No, not everybody. the mother and two of the daughters, I think, got away. And
Really?
later
Oh,
on,
that's
they
good.
find her in the sense that she's in another city, so she's still she lived,
Okay.
but he did not. And his only crime was getting a job.
Right. And starting a better
Yeah.
life for himself. It's unfortunate.
So, it really is. This is a sad history that this country has to face up to. And, when we see things like George Floyd, I think the major thing that made a difference there was that we saw a close-up picture, just like we can see when we look really closely at this money. We could see the face of George Floyd and the face of that evil man that was on his neck, and the look on his face while he was doing what he was doing. And then we see the bystanders even trying to tell him to stop.
Yeah,
and he
you
doesn't
see how
care. He just
frantic
does
they
it.
look, and they're not even involved. And he's got his
He's
leg on
calmly
someone's neck,
doing
his
it.
knee in someone's neck, and it's just...
And when they tell him that he's killing him, then he positions himself
He looks like he was like
differently,
tying his shoe.
he positions himself even more on top of him, so that he could put more pressure and more weight on his neck. And I mean, it's just really sad, that people can do that, and that he felt, and it never would have happened if he didn't feel empowered to do that. With people watching.
They were talking about officers being upset because they were removing the chokehold from like an appropriate, takedown maneuver, or whatever the proper terminology is. But there were officers that were upset and like turning in their badges because that maneuver was being removed
Well, I'm
from
glad they
code
did.
of conduct.
I
Right.
hope they do. I hope they do.
So I don't know if that
though.
was just in certain states or, but I did hear that certain places had implemented that after that had happened in the other incidents around that time.
Technically, the chokehold had been banned, but this issue of the knee on the neck type of thing, and the knee on the head and neck type of thing, it's got to be something that they're trained to do, and I'll tell you why. It's not a normal move. Like if you are a person who's wrestling or boxing or something like that, it's not a normal. The chokehold is a move, but this other knee on the neck is not actually a move.
Yeah.
So somehow they were trained to do that.
Right. No martial arts, no anything, any defense, fighting, you know.
So the interesting thing is, it's not a natural move that you would do. So they had to be trained to do it, number one. Number two, there were, when they had a lot of different civil unrest, I saw another picture of another cop who puts his knee on the neck of a white guy, and they're taking him down, and two of them are taking him down, right? And the other one sees him and takes his hand and takes his knee and moves it. Like, what are you doing, man? He's like, he has his knee
right. What are you doing?
on his neck. And he's like, did you just see what happened?
Right.
And so he grabs his knee and puts it on his back instead of on his neck.
Right, which is probably where you're supposed to be doing it.
Probably.
At least if you're not trying to inflict any harmful bodily injury. But
But even that creates injury. There was a guy, a homeless man in Orange County a few years ago, and his family was upset because he was killed. And his chest was crushed, and it was because of that knee.
You know what?
It was the kneeling on top of him that did that.
He was like in one of the encampments or something like that.
Yes, he was a homeless man, and he may have been a little bit
mentally
illness. mental illness.
I think I remember hearing it. They like cracked some of his ribs or something like that.
They caved
like
in his chest. He died from that. He died from that, and they actually had that on camera.
Really?
And the family sued them for wrongful death.
That's so hard. And then, you can say someone, like George Floyd was supposedly, used a fake $20 bill or forging a check or whatever, right?
The fake $20 bill. Now
right. See?
Let me see what they think.
Right. See what they think about it now. But, them there, it's not, you can't even help it.
Well, from a lawyer's perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. Attempting to pass a fake $20 bill is not even a crime. Because
that's why I was like, how did he even get apprehended by the police?
Someone
called the cops and said,
yes,
he used a fake 20. And they said, we'll be right there.
Someone did a Karen or a Kevin on him. It was a guy who owned the store.
The store, right?
He called the police. Now, most people
they came?
Wouldn't call the police on something like that.
I'm like, I feel like the police out
Because
here would be like, I'm not coming for that.
most of the time, you might have we don't even know if this is a fake 20. You might have a fake 20 and it may not be intentional, but fraud is a specific intent crime, which means that you have to knowingly, willfully, and intentionally do something with the intent to defraud. Okay? So you have to knowingly do it with the intent.
And now $20 goes so fast. You get $100 in 20s, and before you know it, it's already gone. So people are not sitting here, inspecting each piece of their money and something like.
Well, not everybody knows what to look for.
Exactly,
like,
but even
the money
you
has.
can spend it so fast
somebody
now.
showed me this before. This one might be fake. I see it now. The money has a line in it,
and they have a face too on the side.
And the line is something that can be read. So, like when you go through the airport and you think you're going to take a whole bunch of cash through the airport, they actually have things. They have something that can scan and read it. So, like when you say it says, "Do you have $10,000 or more in your possession?"
Declare it.
And you don't want to declare it, right? And they pull you aside because they can actually read it and they can see the denominations are in there. Now, some people, what they do is they'll pull it out if they want to, if they know. But the average person isn't like examining the bill to see if it's real.
Exactly.
I really wouldn't know. I mean, unless it looked like Monopoly money.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell. Know. But
I don't recall having a fake 20.
Yeah, well, do you see the face on the side here? Did you know that that's in there? That's one of my old cashier tricks you learn.
Oh, yeah.
You see the face? All the bills
and
over
it says
20.
It says things in there, too.
All the bills over 20 have that little face on the
right.
side. But they've gotten slick with that, too. But
there's a lot of watermarks and things like that. But they say that our money is actually the easiest to counterfeit.
I believe
that other monies, because of the different colors and things like that are actually more difficult.
And stuff.
Yes, and materials are more difficult to counterfeit. But I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's a shortage of coins now. And they're really trying to make us go cashless.
They are.
Yes.
I know. And I think that's crazy, too, because they're trying to use that for saying, COVID is transferred on money, and that's why everybody, they have to get rid of it and everything. And I'm like, that's not the case. The same amount of change has been out, and if anything, there's even more change than ever because people are buying all this toilet paper and all this stuff that they need. So why is there no change?
I call it a pandemic for a reason. There's a lot of different things that they're trying to accomplish by having us hiding inside of our homes, afraid of an invisible, microscopic enemy. We can't see it. We can't really confirm whether it's really there or not. Some people are dying, but it's not as deadly, I think, as they want it to be, and as deadly as a pandemic should be for you to be taking these drastic measures and tanking the economy. In my estimation, I mean, people would be dropping dead in your face.
Right. Walking down the street.
Right. That's a pandemic. This is something that they're trying to do, and I think that had they used the masks and proper masks and everything in the very beginning and mandated everybody wear them in the very, very beginning, they probably would have been able to contain it much better.
But they just said everybody just go home, and everybody kind of went home, but then they didn't have on mask, or they were still just seeing friends and family, so people weren't really thinking of it. And then they're like, no, wear a mask. But now I feel like it's becoming a bigger issue. Now it's becoming like cultural and like a status thing and different classism, in places that the economy's opening up, and then places that it's not, or places that are demanding they don't have to wear masks, and, other places that they're really pushing for it. So, I think it's kind of all over the place. I think it's going to get a little crazy once you get all with the different governors in each states. And once everything kind of mellows out, and you'll begin to see who's more dramatic or still implementing things into the coming months or years.
Well, I think that the governors now have mandated masks and stuff because the problem is that now they're looking bad. They're looking stupid because their states that they forced into opening early have actually
all these spiked cases.
They have the most cases. The ones that open early and just totally flaunted everything are the ones that have the worst amount of cases. But my concern is that they might release another more deadly strain.
Right.
Yeah.
They did this. They already know, okay, we can do something similar like this again. And then...
Well, it's a pandemic, so if it doesn't accomplish the goals, they'll do something else.
Round 2 for the winner.
Yes. See, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, too, is that there were 4 senators, Rand Paul was one of them, that felt that, I believe Senator Kamala Harris and Senator Cory Booker introduced an actual law that lynching, to say specifically that lynching was against the law. They went against it, saying that it was a first... Now, it's a torturous thing. It's a First Amendment violation. It violates the right of people that want to lynch us. It violates their First Amendment. Yes, they want to express something a certain way.
But why you got to use me to do it?
Why do you have to kill someone? Wait a minute, murder is a crime.
Right.
But now they're saying that the way someone is murdered is a free speech.
So what are the other versions of free speech that we can add into that too? That
I took constitutional law.
With taking people's lives.
I did constitutional law, and there's a exception to the First Amendment when it deals with public safety. Like, for instance, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater when there's really no fire, just because you want to see people panic.
Yeah, or like bomb on a plane, or
exactly, just because you want to see people panic, and then people can get hurt because of they're going to panic. And so it's not, there's not an absolute right. There's not, First Amendment right and the Second Amendment right is not absolute. I have a right to free speech. They just hear that one, and you're like, what are the other ones? They're like, I don't know. So you agree that, but a lynching isn't speech. It's symbolic speech. So now are they going to say that they have the right to keep this on the back of the bill because they have a right to free speech?
It's symbolic of American expression. And free speech.
Arguably it is.
Of our history as a country.
It arguably is.
Right.
But it should be embarrassing to them. It really should. So, with that, we're going to wrap up our show.
Thank you. It was nice being here today. I learned a lot of way more interesting things about the $20 bill for sure. And now I'm going to have to go home and look at this more closely again, too, because I want to see some more stuff in here.
Yeah, the more closely you look, the more you see. And you know what I think is that, what I want to call to action is for everyone to start really petitioning to put Harriet Tubman on that $20 bill. This was done during Obama's presidency, President Obama.
Yes, they have
and now, 4 years later, we still don't have, I mean, it was actually supposed to happen. And then when this person came in office, who shall be nameless, he made it, I think he signed an executive order to stop it and said he wouldn't do it. And so now we're sitting up here with this offensive picture on the back. And also the picture on the front is offensive to me, too, because Andrew Jackson is a racist. So I think that everything on there should be changed, period. And it should be an ode to black people. And it should be an apology, even.
A commemoration.
Yes, a commemoration to our courage, our stamina, our resilience.
And our place in history.
They should put like great inventors, all the inventions that we made.
They should
all
do
this positive
stuff. They could do a Black History edition of all the denominations.
Yes.
They can do whatever they want because they just print the money anyway.
But you know, the sad thing about it is we're getting ready to go paperless.
Of course.
So here they pushed back, so we never got Harriet Tubman on the bill.
And now
we're on the verge of going paperless. You know, so that's pretty bad. But we all need to sign a petition to get this done and urge our Congress people to get this done immediately, because this is offensive and this is the most frequent denomination $20 bill.
You see this everywhere.
Yes. So good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening in and viewing.
So this has been sponsored by Dixon Justice Center and 877-DUILady.com. And we'd like to see you next week. We're going to be here with it's going to be the culture of music and film, but every 6:30 on Mondays we have something, it's going to be either woke or legal synopsis or the culture of music and film. Thank you.
Yes. Have a good night, you guys. Take care.